Everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on pronouns. Remember, we said that there's quite a few lessons that we must do under pronouns, so we are doing quite a few lessons um, under pronouns, right? So our chapter is going to be we're doing pronouns. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. Grade 7. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of pronouns. And as you can see, there's quite a few lessons under pronouns. So today we are going to do 2 of the lessons, and then when we do our next, for example, lesson again, then we are going to finish off pronouns. So we're basically doing pronouns again, right? Next time. All right, so our chapter is pronouns. Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 7. And the lessons that we're focusing on is to choose between personal and reflexive pronouns. All right, so our lessons are to choose between personal and reflexive pronouns and to use reflexive pronouns. So we're going to choose between reflexive and personal pronouns and also to use reflexive pronouns. All right. So we basically found out now that there are different, let's say, types or kinds of pronouns, right? And today we're going to be focusing specifically on reflexive pronouns, and we're also going to find out, or let's say, focus on personal pronouns, right? And there is quite maybe like a slight difference there. All right, so reflexive pronouns, right? So reflexive pronouns are pronouns that end either in self or it end in selves. So reflexive pronouns end in self or it ends in selves, right? For example, we have subject pronouns and we have reflexive pronouns. Or let's say the subject, which is either singular of the reflexive pronoun. If the subject is singular, right, we are referring to one person, right? one person or thing that is doing the action, and then we say it is, for example, I, which is our subject, our singular subject, and our reflexive pronoun would be like myself because I'm referring to me, right? It's like if I'm saying I'm going to the shop, then I'm referring to myself, right? That is going to the shop. Then we have you, right? And if we're referring to you, then we're referring to yourself. Then we have she, and if we're referring to she, then we're referring to herself. Then we have he, and if we're referring to he, then we're talking about himself. And it, and then we're talking about itself, right? That is when we have a singular subject. And then when we have a plural subject, right, then the reflexive pronoun will be, if we refer to our plural pronoun as we, right, then our reflexive pronoun will be ourselves. So we needs to be referred to ourselves. It need to, let's say, is a word, they need to kind of match, right? They need to refer back to yourself or ourselves. Then you, right, referring to ourselves, which is more than one person, and then they, right, which is the plural subject, and we refer to it as themselves. All right. And when it comes to reflexive pronouns, right, we said that with reflexive pronouns, it is pronouns that ends either in self or it ends in selves, right? And our subjects, whether it is singular subject or a plural subject, it needs to refer back, or let's say our reflexive pronoun needs to refer back to our plural or singular subject. All right. So we see that a reflexive pronoun, right? And a reflexive pronoun is used to refer back to the subject of the sentence or clause in which it appears. It refers back. And also, when it refers back to either the sentence or the clause in which it appears, then it needs to agree with the subject. So if I refer to myself, right? Right? And then I will be my subject because I'm referring to me. I'm referring about me, right? So which means that the word myself needs to refer back to the singular subject, which is I. And our example is we helped ourselves to some soup, some more soup. Some more soup. We helped ourselves to some more soup. So ourselves, right? Remember we said that is a plural subject. So ourselves need to refer back to we. And there we have it. Ourselves referring back to we. So that reflexive pronoun, it needs to refer back to the subject of the sentence or clause in which it appears. And that is the example that we made. We have examples, but when we said the reflexive pronoun, for example, myself needs to refer to I, Yourself needs to refer to you. Herself needs to refer to her, to she. Himself needs to refer to he. Itself needs to refer to it. And then plural subject, right? There we have ourselves needs to refer to we. Yourselves needs to refer to you. And themselves needs to refer to they. Right? That is reflexive pronouns that is used to refer back to the subject of the sentence or the clause in which it appears, and it should agree with the subject. Whatever reflexive pronoun that you make mention of, it needs to either agree to the singular subject or the plural subject, depending on the word choice that you're using. And once again, I made an example of we helped ourselves to some popcorn. So ourselves is our reflexive pronoun, which agrees back with we, which is our subject or our plural subject. After the guests left, Amy made herself a cup of tea. So Amy made herself a cup of tea. And if we look at this one specifically, right, it says Amy made herself. Herself is our reflexive pronoun. And it refers back to Amy because Amy can be in the place of she. Right? So we can call Amy she, and then it refers back to our singular subject. Right? So once again, we see the subject of the clause in which the pronoun appears is Amy, and Amy can be called she, so we use herself, right, which refers back to either Amy, which we can be used also as she. All right. So that is our reflexive pronouns, right? And we see the reflexive pronouns are words that ends or are pronouns that ends in self, which is singular, and selves, which is plural. And we are also going to find out now about our personal pronouns, because remember we made mention that we need to discuss personal pronouns as well as reflexive pronouns, and we need to see the difference between a reflexive pronoun, and we need to see the difference between a personal pronoun. And once again, before we go on to A plus students, a reflexive pronoun is referred back to the subject of a sentence or clause in which it agrees. It needs to agree with the subject. All right, so so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, where we are going to do our tutorial lesson as well as our test. And we're going to choose, we said that our chapter is pronouns, and the lessons that we are focusing on today is going to be to choose between personal and reflexive pronouns and to use reflexive pronouns. That is going to be our lessons for today. So we're going to choosing between personal and reflexive pronouns. We're going to have to see what the difference is between a personal pronoun and a reflexive pronoun. Okay, and we said reflexive pronouns, right, are words that ends either in self or in selves. And then once again, We went over words like for a reflexive pronoun, our first reflexive pronoun, we said that firstly, we see that we have singular subjects and we have plural subjects, right? When it comes to reflexive pronouns. Our reflexive pronoun, myself, right? And then we have the subject, a singular subject, I. Then we have a reflexive pronoun, yourself, and a singular subject, which is you. Then it is herself, referring to she, himself, referring to he, and itself, referring to it. And the same with our plural subjects, referring to more than one. Our reflexive pronouns is ourselves, referring to we, yourselves, referring to you, and themselves, referring to they. All right, so we see the reflexive pronoun is used to refer back to the subject. It refers back to the subject, right? Or the sentence or clause of the sentence of clause in which it appears, and it should agree with the subject. And earlier on, we made an example on our whiteboard of how a reflexive pronoun needs to agree with our singular or our plural subject, right? And then a reflexive pronoun can only be used to refer to the subject of a sentence or the clause in which it appears, to refer to something else or someone else. A personal pronoun like me, you, him, her, it, us, or them should be used instead. All right. So we said a reflexive pronoun. It can only be used to refer to the subject of the sentence or clause in which it appears. For example, myself referring to I, herself referring to she, himself referring to he, for example, right? That is a reflexive pronoun referring only to the subject of the sentence. And then to refer to someone else or something else, we then have to make mention of a personal pronoun, because we are referring to either someone else or ourselves, which is myself, right? And some of our personal pronouns are words like me, you, him, her, it, us, them. And those are the personal pronouns that should be used instead. All right, so now we're going to do one or two activities before we go on to our test. All right, it says we need to select the best pronoun to complete the sentence, right? So pronoun, whether it is a reflexive pronoun or it is a personal pronoun, we need to choose the correct or the best one in order to complete the sentence. It says, the astronomer will the astronomer you contacted show to use the observatory's telescope? So do we say himself? So Jake. Oh, because we're referring to someone else. Okay, so we will then say, will the astronomer, right? So the astronomer is coming. So now we need to know, will the astronomer show you, the astronomer you contact show you how to use observatory telescope? Right? So you, which means that it's a personal pronoun. Because it's not referring back to the astronomer, but it's referring to the next person, which is you. All right. So we're going to the next one. It says, did you injure during the ice hockey game last night? So did you? If we refer to that one, then we would say that is a reflexive pronoun because then we say, did you injure yourself during the ice hockey game last night? And that is a reflexive pronoun, which refers back to the subject. All right, so we said that the best pronoun is the reflexive pronoun. And we said, did you injure yourself during the ice hockey game last night? So yourself refers back to you, right? So yourself refers back to you, the subject you. All right. All right. So we say that any reflexive pronoun needs to refer back or it needs to agree with its subject. All right, so now we're going to our test. And we are going to choose between either personal or reflexive pronoun. So select the best pronoun to complete the sentence, either a reflexive pronoun or a personal pronoun. It says, he impressed. Do we say he impressed me or he impressed myself with his knowledge of Greek myths and legends? He impressed me with his knowledge or he impressed myself with his knowledge of Greek myths and legends? What is the correct answer? Me or myself? All right, we're going to the next one. It says, select the best pronoun to complete the sentence. He impressed. We say he impressed me or he impressed myself with the knowledge of Greek myths. Oopsie. So we can say he impressed me, right? Because he's impressing the next person, not himself. Remember, if you're doing something for yourself, that is where reflexive pronoun comes in. For this assignment, should we measure ourselves in inches or centimeters, or should we measure us in inches or centimeters? So for this assignment, should we measure, do we say ourselves in inches or centimeters, or should we measure us in inches or centimeters? So we're going to say for this assignment, should we measure, let's see, ourselves? Yes. So we measure ourselves, and ourselves refer to we, right? So ourselves, the rug, it refers back to me, which is the personal pronoun. Choose between the personal and the reflexive pronoun. We need to select the best pronoun. Will the astronomer you contacted show you how to use the observatory telescope, or show yourself how to use the observatory telescope? All right, so will the astronomer you contacted show you how to use the observatory telescope or yourself? We're gonna say, will he show you? Because that astronomer need to speak to me, right? So it's referring to somebody else. In the subway station, a lost tourist asked me for directions to the flea market or asked myself. So we say in the subway, sorry, station, a lost tourist asked me for directions to the flea market. And every year he challenges, do we say he challenges yourself to do better in the chess tournament or he challenges himself to do better in the chess tournament? All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, we can say he and himself. All right, so we can say, I can't wait to acquaint. Do we say, I can't wait to acquaint myself with all, with all that is city, all that the city has to offer? Or do we say, I can wait to acquaint me with all that the city has to offer? Which one is the correct answer? All right, so we can say, I can't wait to acquaint myself with all that the city has to offer. All right, so myself is correct because it refers back to I, which is our subject. All right, this weekend I am dedicating me to taking care of the chores that have piled up, or do I say, this weekend I am dedicating myself to taking care of the chores that have piled up? So this weekend I am dedicating myself to taking care of the chores that I've piled up. All right. So remember, we see that when it comes to reflexive pronouns as well as the personal pronouns, the difference is that with reflexive pronouns, right? With reflexive pronouns, we have a singular subject and we have a plural subjects. Reflexive pronouns needs to refer back to the subject that it was referring to, right? So these are reflexive pronouns. Myself needs to refer back to the singular subject I. Yourself needs to refer back to you, herself to she, himself to him, he, itself to it, ourselves to we, yourselves to you, themselves to they, right? It needs to refer back to that subject whenever you make mention of it. But if you are talking about someone, right, other than you, then that is a personal pronoun. All right. So remember, we see that with a reflexive pronoun, it refers back to our subject or our plural subject, a single or plural subject, right? And we see it also with our reflexive pronouns. It is the subject or the sentence or clause which appears and it should agree with the subject. It needs to agree with the subject. All right. Okay, so we went already over those ones. So we now need to say we need to use reflexive pronouns. Remember, we basically looked at the difference between a reflexive pronoun and a personal pronoun. Pronouns refer to the next person, right? All right. So we can say that when it comes to our reflexive pronoun needs to agree with either our singular subject or our plural subject. And if we look at the sentence, it says complete the sentence with the pronoun that refers back to the subject in bold. So your uncle makes a fool of every time he gets on the dance floor. So your uncle makes a fool of. So we can say your uncle makes a fool of. So he's making a fool of himself, right? And himself refers back to your uncle, which is he, right? So he's making a fool of himself every time he gets on the dance floor. All right, now we're going to our test. All right, so we are using our reflexive pronoun only, right? It says, did you overexert? Do we say himself trying to move that antique Mabel bureau to the attic? Or did he overexert herself trying to move the antique maple bureau to the attic? All right, so we say, did you overexert? Did he overexert himself trying to prove that antique maple bureau to the attic? If you're both finished eating, you may excuse. Do we say you may excuse yourselves or you may excuse themselves from the dinner table? All right, so we can say if you're both finished eating, you may, if you are both finished eating, then you may excuse yourself from the dinner table, right? Yourself. All right, and yourself is correct. And then we're going to do the last one that says, I smeared. Do we say I smeared yourself or I smeared myself with lotion to keep the bugs away? All right, so we say I smeared. Do we say I smeared yourself or do we say I smeared myself? With lotion to keep the bugs away, but the mosquitoes still bit me. Remember, our reflexive pronoun needs to refer back to our specific subject, whether it's a singular subject or plural subject. So we can say I smeared myself. So myself refers back to the singular subject, which is I. If they had put some, if they had put snow tires on the cars, they could have spared themselves of trouble of getting stuck in the snow. All right, so that is basically some of our reflexive pronouns. And remember, we said a reflexive pronoun, right? It refers back to the subject of its choice, right? If we have a singular, um, if we have a singular reflexive pronoun, we're talking about one person, then our reflexive pronoun needs to refer to a singular subject. We're talking about more than one person, then our reflexive pronoun refers to a plural subject. All right, so this is the end of our lesson on pronouns. Thank you very much, grade 7, for joining. I hope you're going to have a good evening further. Goodbye.